Welcome to Blueprints for Liberty, Designing the Freedom Cities of Tomorrow. This is a podcast that explores the visionary concept of freedom cities and how we can create living environments that prioritize individual liberty, social harmony, and equal opportunities for all. We look back through history to see how the past informs the future and how people can self-organize in their communities to support self-sufficiency. We also look to develop leaders that are moral and ethical in a world that is spinning out of control. Tune in to be part of the conversation shaping the future of our communities.
Hello and welcome. Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to have this discussion with me. I'm so excited for this series that we're kicking off.
Yes, I'm very excited too. Spoiler alert, we're kind of friends. We've become friends in the last little while. And between the two of us, we decided we wanted to do a podcast together because we love talking to each other. And because there's so many insights that we find through our conversations, we thought it might be fun to share with you what some of our insights are.
Yes, amazing. And yes, we do have a lot of conversations, and the conversations go in all sorts of weird and wonderful directions. So hopefully there's some stuff that's useful to others in there as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I think the theme of that we were just talking about, the theme of what we would like this series to be about is looking at the future of life and business and how to forge your own path consciously, a little bit with a bit more awareness in what is looking to be a very different future to what I guess we have been living or we are living currently. Is that fair to say, Cheryl?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So let's start with some intros. I'll get you to go first. You can introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm I think at a completely different stage. I wouldn't say retired. I keep saying I'm retired, but I'm not really retired. And I'm not sure I'm totally ready to retire, but I'm at that stage where I'm winding down in my life. And fortunately, also get to do a lot of things that I enjoy doing that I didn't always get to do. I've been an independent consultant for way longer than I want to share. And everybody always thinks, oh, that's great. You get to do whatever you want. You don't have to have a boss and everything. I'm like, no, sometimes I've had as many as 10 bosses at one time. And more often than not, I went into the, learning and development space, by the way. And I would go in and help people to create their learning. And I was all excited to create this, what I thought was going to, in the interview, when, they chose to hire me, we'd talk about all these wonderful things that, we wanted to create. And I'd get there and they'd sit me down in front of a computer and say, here's this piece of software and just create this online learning module. You know, those things that everybody hates to do? Well, I created lots of that. And so I finally decided, hey, I'm ready just to create what I consider to be a good, positive learning experience, because learning has been a passion of mine, which obviously led to, why I've been doing this for so many years. But just a little bit of background, I'm married, have 4 adult children and 3 grandchildren, and live in Virginia in the United States. So there you go.
Amazing. And we're going to dig into a lot more of your skills and experience, because you're very humble about it, but you've got an incredible amount of experience. And I think you've done some really, really cool things, and you've had like multiple career changes. And it fascinates me always when people are just so humble about the things that they've actually achieved. And to hear you say winding down is interesting to me, because I don't see it that way at all. Like, we've had a lot of conversations, and I don't see it as winding down at all. I see it as evolving into a new version of you, like a new chapter that's just looking different, because I don't see you slowing down. I just see you taking on different interests and challenges. And in fact, you're kicking off some really exciting projects as well.
Definitely. I think I need to be a younger version of myself. What's that? 100%, 100%. Every time I listen to somebody talk and they say 100%, I'm like, please don't say that one more time. So I'll quit saying definitely.
Oh, guilty.
I know. We all have our words that we insert.
Yeah. Yeah. So I might do an intro. Do you want me to do an intro as well?
Oh, of course.
Introduce myself. I won't, without going into all the backgrounds, my working background is in corporate. So 20 years in the corporate space in all sorts of human capital related roles. So everything from recruitment to HR to learning to transformation type roles. We have a shared passion of learning. I think that's one thing that you and I connected on. And outside of that, I am an enthusiast in human behavior. So, and all types of human behavior and movement as well. So I am a qualified yoga and meditation instructor, and that philosophy has shaped and molded a lot of my personal journey and what I teach and share with others now as well in terms of self-discovery work. And that's one of the other places that you and I have connected on as well, and a big theme of what we'll be talking about in this podcast series around what's being referred to as conscious leadership.
That's a very, since it's such a vague term, it allows us just to go any direction we want.
Anywhere we want. What does it even mean? Yes. And that's why we're doing this series to really delve into what does it mean to be conscious in this day and age? Why is it so important? And how can we use that to really forge ahead in the future of life and business? So unpacking a lot of those broad concepts and terms for ourselves and for others as well.
Yeah, definitely. What? Oh, see, I'm not going to say definitely.
Definitely.
There we go.
100%.
100%. There we go. Okay. Now we can move on. Yeah. Well, I think if we jump back, and I have the benefit, I guess, because I have adult children, of sharing a little bit of their experience growing up compared to what we're going through today, besides my own personal experience, even though I didn't work as a W-2 employee in the corporate space, I definitely was in the corporate space plenty. Almost all my clients were Fortune 500 companies, big government, you name it, small companies. I did it all. I ran the gamut. But and now I'll really date myself. But Meltem has this chart that she shares, and maybe we'll have, we can have it put up here in a few minutes, but that shows how technology itself has kind of evolved over time. And it's like every 100 years it evolved, and then it got down to, I don't know, 50 years, and I'm just throwing numbers out there right now. And then it was like every 10 years. And I, I'm old enough to know when we had telephones on the walls and you had the corded phone, and you were attached to the wall. And my kids have no idea, you know, and my parents were old enough, with the dial phones and different things like that. And I would never comprehend having 1,000 songs on a device that I could hold in my hand. We had to listen to car radios and different things. So just from a technological thing, I'm not saying anything I'm sure most people don't know, but the thing that I think is most significant isn't necessarily the technology that has advanced us, forward. But to me, the thing that's most disappointing, and I don't want to start off on a down note, but is that with the advent of all this technology, it seems like learning is becoming more and more challenging and moving backwards. And from a corporate perspective, it was probably in about 2010, 2011, I was noticing as I was going into all these different companies that the people that they were hiring, especially the people fresh out of college, that there was onboarding was like the biggest topic ever. And I was like, onboarding? Oh, I mean, we all onboard, but they wanted all these formal onboarding programs, and we had to, adjust for Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, all this kind of thing, right? And so I did a whole bunch of research into all of that and was trying to figure it all out. But at the core, what it amounted to was there were 5 critical skills that across the board, every single one of the companies that I worked for, and I literally worked for, no joke, over like 100 different companies, and they all said the same thing. Critical thinking, creativity, team building, communication, and resilience. They did, and those are things I just took for granted growing up.
Mhm.
And then I looked at my kids and I noticed that they were kind of struggling. And then the people that are coming into the workforce right now. And I just pre-COVID got finished doing an intern, or I wasn't an intern, but I was over the interns at the University of California. So I was managing these interns and I saw really firsthand.
Mhm.
It was crazy. And to me, that's, as we keep moving forward with technology and all the wonderful things it can do, and some of the drawbacks, and we'll get into that,
Mhm.
I noticed this huge gap.
Mhm.
And that has been a huge concern to me and something that I've kind of wanted to work out as I've switched gears in my life. So,
Yes. Yeah. And we will have the chart overlaid, and what the chart shows, and if you look particularly at the last 30 to 40 years, is firstly how much new technology has been introduced just within that short space of time, so digital technology in particular. And then you see this exponential rise of how much each of those technologies have started to do in our lives. So, as an example, the introduction of the internet, and now where we're at with the internet, and how much time we spend on there, and just how much of our work and of our life is done utilizing the internet. I mean, even these conversations would just not be possible pre that time. But it's not just one thing, it's a whole heap of technologies that have been introduced and are continuing to be introduced a lot more rapidly. And as they're being introduced a lot more rapidly, they're taking over more of our everyday lives. So connection, work, even things like dating. There's so much that,
yeah.
yeah, our online shopping, our travel bookings, like there's so much digital integration in our lives. And the concern that I have with that is, and you kind of touched on it, is that it's happened so fast and it's happened only in one generation. And what I've observed, because I had a moment in around 2021, 22, where probably sort of at the end of the whole COVID lockdown period, where this phrase, the new normal, started to become popular. And I was looking around and feeling there is no new normal. We can't go back to how things were, this full paced life of, everyone in the office and just rushing through life with very little presence and awareness. And we can't stay how we were in that period of like lockdown and everyone always working from home, and a lot of social isolation, but we hadn't found the middle ground yet. And to me, there was no new normal, and there wasn't a really clear path forward of what that new normal might look like. But what I caught a glimpse of is, aside from, returning to this structure that we had, all these institutions and structures that we had, there was this new world that seemed to be emerging where, yes, the technologies were being used, but they were being used in a way that was much more in service to the benefit of everyone rather than the benefit of just a few. So, concepts like decentralization and things like that, and freedom of work and autonomy, and a lot of these concepts that have always been really appealing to me. But I was able to sort of glimpse people who were living that way. And the gap for me that I've been trying to bridge is, how do you get there? What's the actual way to make that leap into this new way of being, into an alternative to the traditional structures, and making technology work for us? And the other thing that became really apparent to me in the fallout of that whole 21, 22 period is the impact of all this technology being introduced so rapidly in such a short period of time and taking over so much of our lives, is that a lot of people just got used to constantly going. Like life was just a constant treadmill of go, 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 go. And then when we had to forcibly stop in that period, a lot of people didn't know what to do. It kind of they internally collapsed, because it was like, now you had to actually be in your life that you had not been in for a really long time. Be in your homes, be with your family, be with yourself. And so this question of like meaning came up for a lot of people around, am I doing the things that I want to be doing? When did I choose these things that I'm doing? And there's still a lot of fallout from that, which I think has led to a lot of people looking a little bit deeper in, what else is possible? Have I made the choices that I want to continue to make moving forward? And if not, what is available to me? And how can I use this emerging landscape to my benefit to do what I actually find meaningful? And how do I make that leap? So yeah, I think when I work with people, one of the biggest challenges is not keeping up with technology. There's absolutely this thing of how do I learn most effectively all this stuff that's hitting me in the workplace, and everyone's talking about AI, and what do I actually need to know about AI? And no doubt we will get into that as well. But there's also an element of that we were never really taught around figuring out what's important to you, how you want to live, what do you want to create in life, and then using that as a filter to filter out all this noise, because we live in a much more noisy world than even when I grew up. The world is a lot noisier, it's faster, it's busier, there's a lot more pressure and demands, purely because of how much more we can do with technology, how much more information we have access to, how much more of the world that we see, how much we see of what's out there and what's possible. Sometimes, or more often than not, what I'm finding with people is like the ability to be able to filter out the noise and focus on what's important to you rather than everything else that's going on is the key sometimes to learning what you need to know and not worrying about the rest.
Yeah, and sorry to keep jumping backwards, but so many things come to my mind as we're
Yeah.
talking, and
Yeah.
I know we've talked about this too, and I've shared this with you, but I think a big part of that is because, I know it's interesting. My parents' generation to my generation, there wasn't a lot of difference in how we were raised,
Mm-hmm.
and I had so much, I don't know if you want to call it free time when I was a kid, and all my neighbors did too. And so I had lots of friends to play with, and we were always out in the neighborhood, and we were always organizing games. And that's why I said we didn't have these organized sports. We didn't have a referee and a coach, and we were our own referees and coach. We made up our own rules. We enforced our own rules, and they
Yeah.
changed rapidly throughout the game,
Yeah.
And so I had the benefit of having a world where I felt like I was closer to, because I was a daydreamer growing up. I mean, I loved to walk everywhere I went, and I loved to daydream. And I must have lived out my husband, he's funny. He says that he worked on cars when he was younger, and he wanted a 67 Mustang, and just by chance I happen to have a 67 Mustang. But nonetheless, he said that when, he had lived it so much in his own mind that he wasn't sure if he had it in reality, if it would
Yeah.
be as good as it was in his own mind. And
Wow.
that's how it was. I had lived out so many fantasies, I guess you'd say, in my own mind,
Yeah.
that I was like, oh, wow. So I never felt this loss of meaning in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I noticed as my kids, there was a big shift.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't work when my kids were young, but everybody else did that was my age. And so my kids didn't have anybody to play with.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I had to put them in daycare just to get
Yeah.
them, for somebody to play with. And these are the kind of things, these are the experiences that I think. And then as kids got older, from the moment we get them up in the morning, we feed them, we rush them off to school, they have after school activities, they come home, they do homework, and then they go to bed, and it just the hamster
Yeah.
wheel just keeps going. So I don't think kids in my kids' generation know how to stop and think.
Yeah.
They don't know how to internalize and that's why they're missing these key skills. And that's why I think what you're talking about becomes important, because it's interesting. Everything always comes full circle. And I think people are starting to realize that we can't live like this forever, because if we do, we're just going to run ourselves into the ground and we're not going to be happy. And you ask people, what do you want on your headstone? Is your epitaph or something? And people are like, I don't know. One day I'm just
Yeah.
going to die and just bury me, kind of thing. They don't even think about what they want to be remembered for.
Yeah.
So I think
I,
that's interesting.
it's there's so much that I want to pick up on from what you've said,
I
but
know.
what you are saying about the kids these days not being able to stop and internalize, I think it goes beyond the kids. I work with a lot of adults in my coaching, in my mentoring, in my one-on-one work, and in my group work with and I have been through this myself. Is it's we were never taught the ability to just be with ourselves. It was this constant seeking and chasing and having to do more and be out there, that this ability to just stop and go inward and be with whatever is inside of you, it's not just a missing skill, it's very uncomfortable, because as adults, for most of us, we have never ever done that. We've never done that. And so to stop and to go internally, it's a really uncomfortable experience. It's noisy and it's loud, and there's a lot of stuff in there that we don't really want to pay attention to, because if you really sit and think about what's going through our minds, sometimes it's not a great place to be, but it's because that internal landscape has been ignored for so long. It's like I compare it to like a child that wants attention and isn't getting it, and they're having a tantrum. That's the
Good
analogy that I
example.
give to people. Yeah, because one of my recent mentoring clients was like, oh, I can't do this like sitting in stillness thing, because and I hear it all the time. I can't do this sitting in stillness thing because it's just like so noisy, and I can't clear my mind. I can't stop the thoughts. I'm like, you're not meant to. Just get in the practice of stopping. Just stop and actually just be okay with what's going on in there without actually engaging with it, just to get an insider view of what you're living internally, because a lot of what you're living internally is what's creating what you experience externally, but we're so disconnected from our internal and external worlds that it's hard to even fathom that connection. So I'm sure this is a topic that we'll get into really deep in one of our conversations. But yeah, it's not just kids, it's adults as well. And I think that's one of the key things that has come out from that period of like 2019 to 22 is people were forced to go internally because there wasn't that much to do externally anymore. And we realized that we weren't equipped for that we had never done that. And, now it's like, well, how do we build these skills?
Yeah, I find it interesting that we, look at it as a skill, because it should just,
Be natural. It's not.
yeah. And I remember I put together a presentation a long time ago, and it was geared toward, younger people. So on one side, it was like, what do you want to be? As opposed to who do I want to be? And all day long, these kids could say, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be this. I said, okay, now who do you want to be? And they're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're clueless.
Yeah.
And I find myself,
Yeah.
I got caught up in that same thing. And
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
I'm not having to, I'm enjoying
Yes.
kind of stepping back and going, you know what? And we just, I just so you know, Meltem lives in Australia. She never said that. But
Oh, yes. I do. I think the accent gave it away.
yeah, I know. True. But we've moved out on this property, and we live out, we have 8 acres, and it's just beautiful, and there's deer and raccoons. Yeah, but we won't talk about the raccoons. But anyway, it's just a whole different experience. My husband's like, oh man, I shouldn't have brought you here. Now you're a hermit. You never want to go anywhere. You never want to do anything. I know, isn't it wonderful?
Contentment.
I know. And he's like, you have to go somewhere sometime. I'm like, oh, okay, if I
Yeah.
must.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my biggest quests has been trying to sort of understand four things, which is around purpose, inner peace, personal power, and prosperity. Like for me, they're kind of this picture of what I feel creates like a balanced life and an effective and an impactful life. And it's funny that you say that because, and I know we've had this conversation, so we can talk about this too, that often we only allow the exploration of those things after crisis. You know,
Yes.
for me, it took like a number of crises to be able to go, hey, something's not right. It wasn't even one, it was like multiple things that happened over a series of years. And for me to go, maybe the choices that I'm making and maybe getting caught up in this rat race isn't actually working for me. It's really not what I want to be doing. And that's why I keep getting to burnout, you know? And that's what happened for me. Like and I know for you as well, but it didn't just happen once. I experienced really chronic burnout a number of times. And the very last time that it happened was around 2022. And it was a little bit scary because, you know, there was some like health things that came up for me as well. And I thought, I can't keep living this way. And that was the whole thing about, well, how do you make the leap from living this crazy life where you're on the rat race because you think that you have to do all these things to living a life that's more in line with purpose and inner fulfillment, but also still effective in the world. You know, you can still
Mm-hmm.
achieve, you know, prosperity and be a creator as well. That's kind of the gap that I've been trying to bridge. But yeah, often it does take like crisis to get there, and burnout for I can't speak on behalf of men because I speak a lot more to women, but burnout is a huge thing for women who are like working these really high pressure corporate careers, or, you know, consulting, freelancing, raising a family, doing all the things around the home, being like the glue in their social networks, and then neglecting themselves until everything just crashes and they just can't function in that way anymore. And, you know, I just wonder, does it have to be that way? What's the alternative? What if we could just start with an alternative?
I like that. Let's start with the alternative. Yeah. Well, and I think it is more common in women because I think there's still somewhat the expectation that women, especially if you have young kids, that you're the mother, you also work, you know, unfortunately in this day and age, our societies are adjusted around the fact that there's two working people. So if you want to have any level of comfort whatsoever, you know, two people need to work. And yes, there's a ton of men out there that are very good at, you know, helping around the house and all that kind of thing. And I think that's wonderful. But I think women still see that as their primary responsibility, in addition to going to work as their primary responsibility, and then being the soccer mom that, drops them off
Yes.
here and make sure they get their homework done.
Yeah.
I laugh at my brother. He was like, "Oh, I would love to be a stay-at-home mom. I think that would be the most awesome thing in the world." Then through a series of unfortunate events, he got to be a stay-at-home mom, and he was the worst stay-at-home mom ever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he admits it. He's like, "Okay, I think I'm a good dad, but this mom business is not for me, you know?"
Yeah.
And
Tough.
my husband is he works for a law firm, so that says it all, right? Um, and for the last probably 5, 6 years, I'm like, "You can't keep doing this. You can't keep doing this." He's like, "Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Don't worry, when I get," and I'm like, "No." And guess what? In this last year,
Mm.
he's, been going crazy with all these different doctors trying to figure out what's wrong, why one day he feels good, one day he doesn't feel good. And, it's just this whole series. We won't get into all that right now, but we can get into it at another point in time. But it happens to men too. And
Yeah, for
now
sure.
keep in
Of
mind,
course.
neither of us have kids at home. So all we have, and we both work from home. So it's not like he's, fighting traffic to get to and from work. He's literally just working 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. And he's like, something's got to change.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I, yeah, of course it happens to men. Of course it does. And one of the really interesting learnings and insights that I've had and experienced over the past few years is and why I'm so obsessed with this topic of like purpose is because I feel as though when you are living from a place of purpose where you have really connected your what you're doing in the world and your presence in the world to what you find really meaningful and important to you, and creating value in the world from that and showing up as that, and being recognized for that as well. I don't I don't think you get to burnout. Like I don't think you in fact, I think it's the opposite. And what I have experienced is the opposite, is you are completely energized. It's the space where you are, you're enlivened and you're full of energy and you're full of inspiration, and you could probably just keep going if not for the sheer fact that we have to sleep and eat. You would probably just keep going and going and going. Like I have experienced this really vividly over the past few years. The more that I work in alignment with my purpose, and the disconnect, and where I work with people is we're not taught to live from that place. We live in this, we were brought up, especially I guess our generations, in this expectation that here's the structure and here's the steps, and if
Mhm.
you do these things you will get this outcome, right?
Mhm.
And what I'm finding more and more is that that's not relevant anymore. And that is because of, all of these changes that have happened in such a short period of time. So if you're following all the steps of going to college or university for 4 or 5 years, racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to be able to build this career that's
Yeah.
supposed to get you this life, it's not working. It's not the truth anymore. It was for a period in time, but where we're at right now, it's not actually the reality. So not only are you not getting that outcome, you're getting burnt out trying to achieve that outcome because you were told that that's the way that it is. And that's a lot of the disillusionment that I'm seeing, that I have personally had to break through, and working with others now to try and break through, to go, well, what is the alternative? Let's start from a different place. Instead of you being a circle that's trying to fit into this square of like, do A, B, C, X, Y, Z, even if it doesn't feel right to you biologically, physiologically, spiritually, doesn't align with who you are, just suppress all of that and fit yourself into this square. Let's start from a different place, and let's start with the self-discovery work of who are you, what do you enjoy, what energizes you, what enlivens you, and then how can you bring that to the world in a way that creates a value for others. And then there's a whole other conversation around what is creating value, and being rewarded in the marketplace for that as well. And the more that, I mean, as I said, I've been doing this for myself, but the more that I do this with other people, it's like the words that come up most often are clarity and certainty. I just feel, even just having that experience of having the space to do that inner work, and figure out, like, why do I feel what we said earlier around my inner world and my outer world are so misaligned. um, and the word that comes up is clarity. I just feel really clear, like I know what I'm here to do. Doesn't matter how long it takes. I'm certain on the steps that I need to take to get there. I know that it's eventually going to happen. And that unlocks that feeling of peace inside of, okay, I've got contentment, I've got peace, I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to run myself into burnout trying to chase all these things that I was told is what's important, and it's not happening. And the conversation around women is interesting to me because I work with a lot of women who are just disillusioned, with like, I feel like our generation in particular was sold a lie that we can have it all
Yes.
and that we can be it all. And because we can, that we have to and we should.
Mhm. Yes.
And, to be totally honest with you, Cheryl, most of the work that I do with people is not stacking new stuff. It's actually unraveling. There's a whole process of unraveling all of these beliefs and thoughts and expectations and values of other places and people that we've adopted, to kind of go, yeah, that's not true to me. And I don't want to be all of these things, and I can't be all of these things effectively, and or at least not at the same time, or at least not right now. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to hold space for, but also it's just wild. Like, it's just wild, the level of disillusionment that people are navigating, that we're all navigating.
It is. And I'm sure we'll get into, more stories in the future, because I come back to periods of my life where I felt like I really was living with clarity and with purpose. And it was when my kids were little. But then I took a major detour, and ended up in a bad space. But well, that's a topic for another day. But I was just thinking as you were talking about unraveling, and I have to tell you this because it's so relevant to what we're talking about. Meltem has actually been working with me a little bit about unraveling. And I'm very much of the mindset, I won't go through the whole process that we went through to get to this point. So it might not mean a lot until we do, but we will. I promise someday we'll get to it. But it's like, okay, when you were successful, and I have air quotes here, successful at something, what did you do? And I did, well, I could clearly define, I did X, Y, Z. This is what I did, and that made me successful. And sometimes it took longer than I thought, and sometimes it required more work than I thought, but I was persistent, I was resilient, I was patient, I was all of those wonderful things. And I've found myself very frustrated with some of the things going on in my life, even though there's a ton I have to be very grateful for and I'm very happy with. There are some aspects where I'm not successful. Marketing happens to be one of them. But and so she says, and you made me say it. Yeah, I'm not successful. No, I can't say that. I cannot say that. Those words just don't come out of my mouth. And she made me say it like 3 times. And then afterwards, I like the next day, I ran around all day saying it to myself. And I said it to my husband. He's like, why are you saying that's a terrible thing to be saying? I was like, no, it's not. I feel like I have this huge weight lifted off of my shoulders.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I'm sure, like I said, I think that's that unraveling
Yeah. Yes.
that you were talking about.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. It was, I hope we get into the detail of it, but like the process, that specific process, and yes, like I'm not encouraging people to own being unsuccessful. What what that
I know.
process is that we follow, and it's a method that I learned from one of my teachers, Robert Frist. It's called structural consulting. Is we have this dynamic urge to create something, right? To become something, to express something, to bring something out into the world. And so that urge is pushing us forward into reality, from our inner world of inspiration into something in reality. And then sometimes what gets in the way of reality and our dynamic urge is this concept. And that concept is not actually in reality. It's a concept that we've taken on, and sometimes it's called unwanted or limiting beliefs around how things need to be, how we need to be, how the world needs to be. And what that does is it gets in the way of, it functions like a rubber band, right? So as we're trying to push into reality, this false concept comes into place, and now we're pushing against the rubber band. Okay, and instead of being able to go straight into reality, the rubber band eventually gets to so much tension that it snaps us back, and we're not able to effectively bring to life what we want to bring to life. And so this concept of unsuccessful, I'm unsuccessful is there's depth to it, but there was this idea that you had to be successful, and successful meant being a certain way, right? But it wasn't actually true in reality. The way that you had achieved success in reality was not through this concept that you were holding that was like should and must. And so it wasn't actually based in reality. So once we identify that belief that's holding you back, that was previously a blind spot. By bringing that blind spot to life and by saying it out loud and by owning it, it doesn't control us anymore. We can see it. It's like, oh, I see you there. You can't do that to me anymore. I'm just going to keep going. We're not oscillating with this rubber band. We're just advancing in reality. It doesn't have this grip and this holding back on us. So that's the part about owning it. And yeah, and people always laugh when we get to that belief of like, whatever it is, and they say it, and they can't say it because it's so much like, I'm not unsuccessful. Of course you're not unsuccessful. It's silly, right? Silly. Like, of course you're not unsuccessful. But something else that you said is really like something that I'm really passionate about as well is, we view these moments in time in our lives when we're going through change as like crisis moments, right? When And I'll give you a story of one of my recent mentoring clients came to me with a very vague, and this is how it generally starts, because you know, it is a vague period of life that these things come up for people, is like, I'm feeling all these things, like I really want to do something, but I don't know what it is, and I don't feel satisfied with the things that I've been doing till date, but I don't know what's up ahead, and I don't even really know what I need. It's not a coaching program, it's not a this, it's not a that. I feel like you're the person that can help me. I'm like, yes. I
Step
feel you
one.
because I've been there, you know. And so then we start the process of self-discovery. That's, you know, that's what I like to call it. You can call it anything you like, but it's self-discovery. It's really like sitting with yourself and going, who do I want to be? Who have I been today? And who do I want to be moving forward? And what does that look like? And what does that feel like? And how do I want to show up in the world? There's a whole process that we go through. So we commenced this work, and she was talking to a colleague of hers in her workplace who is studying to be a psychologist, and was explaining to her, you know, how she was feeling, and the work that we were doing, and how she was having some incredible breakthroughs and all this kind of stuff. And her colleague that was studying to be a psychologist said to her, sounds to me like you're having a midlife crisis.
Of course, of course.
Right. And so I asked my client, well, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about what she said? And she said, I'm not having a midlife crisis. And I was like, okay, well, what does it feel like to you? And she said, well, it feels like growth. And I was like, yeah, bam, spot on. That's what it is. It's evolution. And this is where I like to kind of look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And maybe we can get an overlay of that happening as well. There's many models that you can look at. We are designed to evolve through life. And as our more lower priority, lower order needs are satisfied, so around safety, you know, shelter, food, belonging, family, love, security, you know, some of as financial stability, as some of the lower order priorities are satisfied, so you've actually already achieved a certain amount of success or achievement, or whatever it is, you've hit some of those milestones more at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. What happens is that creates more space for you to discover more of who you are, because we have this dynamic urge towards self-realization, right? That's what evolution is, and anything that's conscious is wired for evolution, towards self-actualization, towards self-realization. And unfortunately, instead of viewing it that way, instead of viewing it as growth, instead of viewing it as evolution, it's become something clinical, right? It's like, oh, you're having a midlife crisis. It's like, to me, it's like pregnancy. Pregnancy is the most natural, the most primal experience that a woman's body is designed for, but it's viewed today as a medical experience, right? You're a medical patient when you're pregnant. And look, if something goes wrong, it's wonderful that we have those facilities in place, right? But for most people, in most circumstances, it's not a medical procedure, it's not a medical experience, it's not clinical, right? But it's treated as being clinical. And that's, you know, what I'm noticing in this space of self-discovery is that you're not having a maybe you're not having a midlife crisis. Maybe you're just evolving. And yes, that process of evolution can feel uncomfortable because you're going through an immense amount of change. But just like when kids go through growth spurts, sometimes it's painful, but it's growth.
It is, and it can be physically painful for kids, and sometimes it's physically painful for us. And one thing that I've been doing a lot of lately is redefining words.
Mm-hmm.
And and since this will lead us right into our future topics, we're we're going to be talking a lot about leadership, and I'll start with saying my personal vision, that's the word I'm looking for, of this, is that we'll learn to redefine leadership. Leadership is just simply having a sphere of influence and wanting to be able to influence somebody around you or something or whatever. And it doesn't mean you have to, change somebody. You just want to help them. You want to engage with them. I know that in my life, I hope especially in my younger life, I was kind of ornery and nobody wanted to engage with me. And as I got older, I was like, ooh, I think I need to change things up a little bit if I want to engage with people. So when I say I want to um, engage with those around me, it doesn't mean I want to change their way of thinking or necessarily fix them or help them or whatever. It can simply mean that I want to engage with you.
Yeah.
And to do that, I need to understand the concept of communication and effective communication and that type of thing. But my other favorite word, and I just came across it today and I can't begin to read it. I'll have to read it, sorry. But it's genius,
Hmm.
which is the innate intelligence of all human beings. True genius, as opposed to intellectual genius, is a spontaneous and unstudied creative uniqueness rooted in unconditional love. Genius
Wow.
is the natural manifestation of a human life when it is allowed to expand without force. Genius is a hallmark of the gift. This is gene keys, and we'll get into this later. I won't explain it now. Hallmark of the gift frequency band, where self-forgiveness leads to a progressive opening in your heart, resulting in an explosion of creative energy throughout your being. The higher the frequency of your DNA rises, the greater your urge will be to use your genius in serve of the whole. As more and more people join their genius together, the world as we see it today will be transformed. And that's the vision I have for our conversations together. So whether we
Amen.
call it conscious leadership or, whatever terms we throw out there,
Yeah.
that's my vision.
And it's a shared vision, and it's a beautiful vision, and it's a shared vision. And just before we jumped onto this call, I was talking to you about genius. It's something that I've been obsessed with for the longest time. And one of my mentors, when I was speaking to him about this concept of genius, one of my mentors asked me, do you think that everybody has a genius? And I said, yes, absolutely, everybody has a genius. And he was a bit surprised by that, because I think, like, it's this term that some people want to keep reserved for, like, and feel special about it. And it is special, but also it's every single person has a genius, and their genius is special to them, and everyone's genius is required in order for us to get to a world where we're all working for the highest good of everything, of all of us, not just humanity, but for nature, and all of that. And I know that sounds like a very lofty kind of vision, but I firmly believe that that's the opportunity that these times hold. And as much as technology comes with risk, I think the risk is not the technology. To me, technology is a neutral tool, just like money is a neutral tool. I think the risk is around having tools that are immensely powerful in the hands of people who are not centered in their heart, not centered in their genius, not centered in a space of unconditional love, not centered in a vision where we're all working towards the good of all. And I think that's kind of where our conversations, will tend to. Why is this so important? This, whether you call it consciousness, whether you call it genius, unconditional love, they're all kind of related and wrapped up in the same package of what's the world that we would love to see emerge. And for me, it's, I love what you say about leadership, and we share this as well. I think everyone needs a leader in their lives to different degrees. And I think the more leadership and ownership you take of your own life, the more effectively you can be a leader outwardly. So it's like a sphere of influence that expands outward. And what if we had a world full of people who were leaders, they were awakened to their own responsibility and to their own genius, and living from that place and showing up in the world with the very best that they've got, the thing that only they can do, that's like a little piece of the puzzle of the whole. And we had these incredible tools of technology that allow us to create, to solve some of the biggest problems in the world. And what if that was the vision that we were aiming for? What kind of world could that be?
Exactly. And I think that's a shared vision that you and I have. And I'm sure that, um, we've shared some of our journey together, and we
Yeah.
would like to share that journey with you, moving forward. And hopefully, you can tap into your own inner genius, and we can go on this journey together so that more of us can create the future that we want. Instead of, I think, to me, if I were to summarize this, this conversation that we've had, is life happened to us before.
Mm,
Now we want to make life happen. And it's
I
our
love that.
responsibility to make life happen. And we want to work together, and we want to work with you to make life happen. And so that life is the way we want it to be. I'll give you
Yes,
the last word.
I love that. I'm super excited about the conversations that we'll have moving forward, and no doubt the other people that we'll bring into the conversation who will add their flavor as well. And I think there's so many dimensions to this. And one thing that I will add that was a late addition to my understanding of this space is that a key part of it is also prosperity. So that will be a part of the conversation that I feel is really important as well, because we want to be effective in the world. And I think that is a tool and a resource that's really important. So, it's not just a conversation around the inner work and the self-discovery. It's about, let's do that stuff so we can be really effective in the world. And that's why I'm super excited about the conversations that we'll have.
Yes. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Cheryl. It's been wonderful talking to you. And yeah, this is just the beginning.
That's right. You have a good day, and I'll have a good night. How's that?
Amazing. Thank you.